Good day, my name is Malusi Makheta and welcome to our Super Dealmaker Entrepreneurship Master Program. And today we're looking at business plan development. How do you develop a business plan? And in that module, we are going to look at our case studies. So we're looking at the 3 case studies that we are using to give practical examples to entrepreneurs. The first case study that we're going to look at is McDonald's, based on the Mcdonalds story. And we're also using learners or delegates can watch the movie The Founder, where it explains the Mcdonald's story. So we're going to give you a case study where we explain how do you develop a business plan. So we take the concept of how you develop the business plan, then we show you or we indicate the relevant parts on the case study movie to say how did they build the McDonald's and where the business plan principles apply on this case study. That's the first case study. The second case study that we're going to look at is AEY. It's a movie about 2 young entrepreneurs that secured a $300 million contract in Afghanistan. It's based on real events which happened in the USA. The movie is called War Dogs. So we're going to give you a case study on the business plan concept, how you're supposed to think about the business plan, how do you develop a business plan, and how does that fit into the movie. And the last case study that we're going to look at is the Oakland A's. This is the baseball team that it was a small basketball team in the US, and they didn't have budget. They couldn't compete with big players or big teams, because once they see big teams see players performing in their team, the big teams will buy those players, and it means the Oakland A's had to go back to the drawing board to try and find new players. But the challenge is they had limited budget. So now the movie is about the strategies that Billy Bain implemented to counter that challenge, or to counter their weakness on not having big budget to spend on players. All right, so now let's go start with the McDonald's story. We know McDonald's is a franchise today. We have a lot of McDonald's franchises in South Africa, and it's a known global brand which is all over the world. I think as we speak they are in more than 90 countries or something like that. And the McDonald's itself, I mean, at the beginning it was the McDonald's brothers, even though it's not the McDonald's brothers who grew McDonald's to what it is today. But the start, where McDonald's started, it started by the McDonald's brothers. But even though it started by McDonald's brothers, but that was not their first business. Okay, initially the McDonald's brothers, they started a movie studio where they were shooting films and making movies, and the industry was hit by recession. And they moved from there, and then they saw one guy selling burgers, so he had a burger stand. So they saw that the opportunity to say, okay, we are in recession, but there's this guy who's selling food or selling burgers. He's always busy. So even it doesn't matter if you are in recession or not, people still have to eat. And then that's how the McDonald's brothers identify an opportunity to start their fast food business, to start their burger stand. Then they took whatever the money that they had, because they lost a lot of money in the movie business from their movie business company, and then but they still had some funds available. Then they bought a burger stand, and they set it up in a place called Arcadia, and they started operating. And because they didn't do proper market research, as guided by our module on how to develop a business plan. So the guidance that you must make sure that you do proper market research, you do your feasibility studies, and you prepare a business plan in terms of how you're going to approach that market. And you do also industry analysis to see how is the industry performing and the size of the market that you are targeting and all that, and the competitor. So in this case, the McDonald's brothers, they didn't follow call it the academic way of doing a business plan as recommended. So they went on and set up the burger stand, and as they were trading, because they had other competitors in the area, they realized that in Arcadia they don't have enough people to sustain their business. So, and then they decided that no, okay, we need to move to San Bernardino, it was a bigger town than Arcadia. And because they had used their money, they didn't have money to buy a new burger stand in San Bernardino. So what they had to do is to transport this burger stand that they had to San Bernardino and to set up there. So this is why, okay, maybe one of the key things that maybe you can learn from this story to say, as an entrepreneur, when you start a business, it's easier to start with your own money. And if you are starting with your own money, and you are unlikely to do extensive research, because if you submit your business idea to a funding institution, they will interrogate it a little bit more so that they request more information, and it will make you think through your business plan. Even though the slap to approach funding institution is stressful, they want this and that, but that in its own, it helps you to assess the viability of the business, because they will check, is it viable, do you have market size and all that, so that from their side they can be comfortable that you will be able to repay the loan. So in this case, because the McDonald's brothers were using their own money, so they saw here's the opportunity, and they used their money to buy the burger stand. And a few months later, they realized that no, there's not, even though people are eating, but the market is not big enough to sustain the business. So they moved their burger stand to San Bernardino, and they started very well there, operating as a normal fast food, selling everything, meat, you name it. And then their performance, even in San Bernardino, started to level off, meaning they were not growing. They grew to a certain point, and they reached a peak point, what they call a peak point in business, where your business is not growing, is performing at a steady level of income. And still, they were not happy with that level of income. So they re-looked at their business model, and at the time, there was now, because the McDonald's is using the drive-through method, but then fast food concept was the drive-in, where you drive in and then you sit in your car and the waiters will come and take your orders. So they started with that because it was fashionable at the time. And then they operated that and then as it went, then it reached a point where the business was not growing as much as they thought it will. Again, lack of market research on their part. They just saw a bigger town. They thought the business will grow. And then they realized that, no, okay, the business is not going to grow as much as they thought it will. Okay. And then now they started to rethink their business model. How can we make more money? Then they started interrogating, call it their operational plan. In this module, we call it operational plan. So operational plan, as explained, is how you deliver your product and services. So the operational plan is starting from getting your raw material up to servicing the customers. So they looked at their operational plan, and they realized that they are making about 70% to 80%, whatever, I can't remember the percentage, but they're making a high percentage of their revenue from selling burgers, chips, and drinks. So those three items were the mainstay in terms of revenue for their operation. So they decided to say, since these three items are the main revenue drivers, we're gonna cut everything. The meat, whatever the things, cigarette boxes, cigarette vending machines, and all those things. They're going to cut them out and focus on those three items. All right. And again, they said, but if we are doing this, they needed to be as efficient as possible. So what they did is they went and redesigned the operations plan or the operational layout in the shop to make sure that the employees, you walk limited steps in the process, so that you don't put someone maybe who is doing chips the other side, who's doing drinks the other side, and the other one needs to walk the other side to provide service. So they synchronized the operation to make sure that the employees take minimum or minimal steps as they preparing the burger. So they went and designed, and they went out, they customized their equipment. So they didn't use the standard equipment. They customized their equipment to make sure that the operations are more efficient. So that's the operational plan right there. That you need to look at your business as an entrepreneur. You look at how efficient are you. Are you efficient? Because efficiency will give you competitive advantage. So with the McDonald's brothers, they looked at their operations because their sales had leveled out, so they were not growing. But sometimes if you are making, let's say you're making R1 million revenue per month, you might not make a profit from that R1 million if you are not efficient. But even without growing your turnover, you can increase your profit by re-looking at your operations and see where you can improve. That's what the McDonald's brothers did to their store in San Bernardino. They re-looked at their operations and they found the best way to efficiently improve their operations to make sure that, one, it's a speedy system where when you're preparing food, they increase the speed because they saw that the drive-in model that was used then, it was very slow. So they wanted to address the speed and the efficiency in terms of their operations. How quickly can they service their customers? And they went and redesigned the whole shop. And initially, because they were introducing something new to the market didn't accept the concept because they were still used to the drive-in model where they come in, they sit in their car, and then a waiter must come and take the order and go into the store and then bring the order. So when the McDonald's brothers changed this model, so basically they were innovating or recreating the business model that the fast food chains were using. People didn't accept it initially, but over time people started to accept and it became a hit. And then they were running a store in San Bernardino. And then in terms of the brothers, as maybe their character, they were not like you're driven, wanting to make a lot of money. They just wanted to be in business so that they can have a sustainable life, a good life, a lifestyle business, a good lifestyle. So that's why they built the McDonald's. So they just wanted a good lifestyle business that can sustain themselves and their family. And then that's it. They were operating happily, making their money until they ordered the multi-mixers from Ray Kroc. So now enters Ray Kroc into the McDonald's story. So how did Ray Kroc and McDonald's come to meet? Is the McDonald's brothers ordered, I think, 8 multi-mixers from Ray. So Ray was surprised that there is a operation that can order 8 multi-mixers at the same time. So most of the time, at most you are selling 2 or 1. So because they were big, I mean, I think it was 6 spindle multi-mixers. So you can make 6 milkshake at a time. So now he was surprised to say, what kind of operation buys 8 of those? Then he went to see the operation and he was very impressed. Then he wanted to be in. I mean, Ray is a natural salesperson or an entrepreneur because he was already running his own business. But as an entrepreneur, you have to have open mind in terms of for you to be able to see a business opportunity. So Ray, he didn't focus on selling his multi-mixers. He saw an opportunity. That's what entrepreneurs do. He sees a gap and then he takes that opportunity. So What he did is he negotiated with the McDonald's brothers to say, I want in. And we need to put this thing in each and every community in the US. He had a different vision and objectives than what the McDonald's brothers have. So when you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you are limited by your vision. So the McDonald's brothers didn't see what Ray was seeing. So Ray was seeing a McDonald's being next to police station and a church. So he says in each and every community, you have a church, you have a police station. Then you should have a McDonald's. So there must be, where you see a church, a cross, you see a flag, and you need to see the arches, the McDonald's brand. Okay, he negotiated with the McDonald's brothers. They entered into an agreement for Ray to go and franchise the McDonald's brand. Then from there now, remember the business plan or the business strategy was to run one store. It was from the McDonald's brothers. But Ray now was looking at a different business model of franchising. So Ray was not, the McDonald's brothers were making money from selling the burgers. Ray wanted to make money from other people selling the burgers for him. And he's charging them royalties for them to use the system. It's a different vision altogether, or a thinking. And operationally, in terms of the operational plan, was that the franchisees will buy land and develop a store, and he will bring the systems and the training. And after that, and use the McDonald's brand, and then he's going to charge them 1.9 or whatever the percentage that he was charging them then. That's how he saw himself making money. Okay, then he went out, he did his business plan in terms of how he's going to pitch it to the franchisees, because as a business he had to pitch it to the franchisees. And from the movie and the story is that he struggled to source funding, because remember it was an unproven concept. So the banks were not willing to fund it because there was no money that is backing the operations. It was a startup. We call it, you can call it startup even, because even though the McDonald's brothers were running an operation, remember the model that Ray was going with was different from the model that the McDonald's brothers were operating, because the McDonald's brothers were making money from the burgers and Ray wanted to make money from the franchise fee. And Ray went out and then he developed a different business plan to say how you're going to recruit the franchisees and how is the McDonald's model is going to work. So now the McDonald's concept became different from what the McDonald's brothers intended it to be because of Ray Kroc's vision and his objectives. So he went and he set up. So one maybe main lesson is that you can learn from how Ray came into being part of the McDonald's. To say, as an entrepreneur, you need to have open mind. We must be open-minded in a way that wherever you are, you must be looking for business opportunities. So Ray could have said, I sold 8 multi-mixers. I've made my money. I'm happy. And then move on to find another customer. But he saw there's something there that I can make money out of. Then, yes, he started he opened his first McDonald's and he started franchising the McDonald's to mainly like franchises around the Chicago area. But he was not making money because the operational cost, the logistics of supporting these franchises was just hectic. And then he was sharing that royalty that he was getting, that 1% with the McDonald's brothers. So he was not making money. He was running out of money until he met Harry Sonneborn. So Harry now came with a different business plan altogether to say, look, you're not going to make money by getting a 1% cut from a 5-cent burger. You're going to make money from the real estate. You buy the land, you develop the land, and you find the franchisees that will operate the store under the franchise agreement. Now, it became a totally different model because now the business plan has changed. It's no longer burger stand where they're selling burgers, making money from. No, they're making money from the burgers, one, on the logistics side, where they're supplying the franchisees with raw material. Then they're getting a cut there, rebates. And then they're getting a cut from revenue based on the franchisees, because the franchisees will be using their brand and systems, and they've trained them. That's two. So now the third revenue stream was the one that Harry proposed, of building and franchisees leasing from McDonald's. And then that business model that Sonneborn proposed, it changed the operations of McDonald's. That's what made McDonald's successful. So the business plan of McDonald's changed so many times to where it is today. Since the time of Harry, okay, it hasn't changed much. It stayed the way. They found the perfect model that they can expand into different countries, into different territories. And the main thing is in terms of the viability, because remember, if you don't look at even Ray, when he entered into an agreement with the McDonald's brothers, he didn't see the viability part. He didn't assess it. He saw this is a good business, people are buying. But if I franchise it, will that be viable? Is it a viable approach? He didn't think about that from the story, if you can see, until he realized that I'm struggling. I can't make money with this franchise. So he initially wanted to increase the franchise fee, and then there was a battle between him and the McDonald's brothers to say, no, you can't increase it. Now you're being greedy. We have an agreement in place to say you're going to charge that 1.9. Now he was caught between a rock and a hard place. He needs to expand the business. He's not making money from this business because those royalties are just too small. But when Sonneborn introduced the real estate concept, then that made money, because now the franchisees are not only, he's not only getting the rebates from the suppliers, he's also getting the royalties. Furthermore, he's also getting the rental. At the time, I think the rental was about 5% or up to 5% of the revenue. Remember, they're taking on the top line. It's not the bottom line, the top line. So the McDonald's business model now changed to become more of a real estate business than a burger business, because I mean it became one of the biggest real estate owners in the world, because they own in terms of real estate, they own so many properties because they were building and the franchisees were leasing from them. So that's the story of McDonald's around how they've built the business up to where it is, and the approach that they used in terms of developing the business plan. So the business evolved. So in the process, you develop a business plan, an operational plan for a burger stand, and then later Ray developed one for a franchise, but the business model was only franchisees will develop their own stores and then only pay Ray the franchise fee, and then enter Sonneborn, where he advised that we need to build the real estate. So the business concept changed as they were understanding the market and learning how the market operates. And what Sonneborn came with is what made McDonald's what it is today. There are a few lessons that as an entrepreneur, when it comes to business plan now, you can learn. One is that we saw the McDonald's brothers, the first business didn't do well. The second one, when they moved to St. Bernard, it didn't do well. Ray initially, when he came into McDonald's, he didn't do well. And the common thread there is that they didn't do the market study. They didn't do their industry analysis, right? So they almost failed. Lucky enough, they didn't fail. But you as an entrepreneur, if you don't do those things, you might not be lucky like the McDonald's brothers or Ray, where something else comes to save you, because you would have already sunk your money in. So the most important, you need to make sure that you do your research, your market research. Two, the McDonald's brothers as well, in terms of operations, they just went with what's popular at the time, which was the drive-in model. And then they didn't perform well, and they changed that to the drive-through model as we know it today. So operational plan becomes important. Don't just adopt whatever operational plan that you find in the market. Even Ray was not innovative in his initial approach until Harrison Osborn came with the innovative model to say you need to own the real estate. So in terms of the operational plan, you need to make sure that you think about it, you are innovative around it. And another in terms of the funding, because if you look at it, the McDonald's brothers bootstrapped their operations, right? And Ray, even though he bootstrapped, but he had to go get his second bond on his house and all that to build his first store. But to fund the business from its own cash, it's a difficult process. Your business needs to be very profitable for you to sustainably grow your business using your internal funds. Hence the innovative way of setting up the real estate business. So you need to be innovative in terms of your required funding. You need to make sure that you understand how much do you actually need to run this business. Because if Harrison Osborn didn't come up with that innovative idea, McDonald's might have failed because Ray was not generating enough revenue. So it means he didn't do proper financial projections, which is the requirement when you're preparing a business. Make sure that you do proper financial projections to see if the business is profitable. And then also look at the funding. Do the proper funding required analysis so that you know how much funding you're going to need for you to operate, which when it comes to Ray, he was running around trying to get money. It means he didn't do the proper funding analysis. So those are the lessons that you can learn from the McDonald's story when it comes to the business plan development. Okay, that was the McDonald's story. Now we're going to look at AEY, which is the story of two young boys, not young, but they were in their 20s, who set up in South African context is a tender business where they were tendering for government contracts, and eventually they started small, but eventually they secured about a 300 million tender to supply bullets and AK ammunition to Afghanistan. So that's the story, and you find it in the movie War Dogs. Now there are a few lessons that you can learn from this movie. Now, okay, for now we're looking at the business plan development series, right? And when it comes to business plan, what can you learn from AEY? Okay, then AEY, as I said, there were two guys, but AEY was owned by Ephraim, and then he recruited his friend David to work with him. So, but before David joined Ephraim, he had his own hustle. Okay, it was not a major business, but he was hustling. He was providing massage to the high end customers, and from there, okay, he started. I mean, he bootstrapped the business. He was doing the massage, and then with the money that he made from his massage business, he bought bed sheets to sell to the retirement homes, the old age home. Now he used the profit that he made from one business to go into another business, and unfortunately for him, he didn't do the market research. He didn't understand the market. That's why it's important for you as an entrepreneur to do market research. One, you can identify the opportunity. You can see something there and think it is an opportunity. Because for David, he thought there are many retirement homes in Florida. Then he thought if he buys the bed sheets, then you'll be able to service that market. But he didn't go in detail. It's an opportunity. You can see it. Yes, you can see opportunity. But as an entrepreneur, to make sure that you don't lose money, investigate that opportunity. Do your market research to see how big the market is, how the buying patterns and all that. And then do the industry analysis to see how competitive is that industry. Where are they buying? Where are they sourcing their product? Who will you be competing with? And then you develop, call it a marketing plan. How are you gonna communicate the message of your business, and then how are you gonna attract customers? And this Now, David didn't do all this. And he went and bought bed sheets, high quality bed sheets. And then he started going to the clients. He took all his money, he bought the bed sheets, and then he started approaching the old age home or the retirement homes. And no one was buying. And even in the movie, he says that himself, to say that he bought the bed sheets to service that market, but he made one crucial mistake. No one cared about old people. So you put people in the old age home so that maybe the people take care of them, but it's not like you're gonna buy them fancy or high-end bed sheets and all that. So he made a mistake to thinking people really will buy their grannies and grandfathers the nicest bed sheets, but people are not interested in that. So his business failed because he failed to do a proper market research. He didn't understand the industry that he was trying to go into. So now, at the time, obviously it's a movie, so at the time when his business failed, then he met his old friend Ephraim. So with David, there was no market research. He didn't understand the industry that he was going into. Yes, there was a little bit of business planning because he took the money from massage business to the bedsheet business. There's a little bit of planning, but remember, if you are planning, and even the operation is not complicated. I mean, you just buy the bed sheets, and then you just find old age homes in your area, and then you go sell to them. So that's how simple the business plan is. And sometimes if you're setting up a business like that with no intention to expand or just a lifestyle business, you don't even necessarily need a business plan for it. Then, that bedsheet business failed, and then he met Ephraim. Ephraim, an old friend from primary school, and then Ephraim was in the selling arms or selling products to the US government, most especially the Department of Defense. And then Ephraim had one approach. So in terms of the formalities, Ephraim operates like a cowboy. No business plan. The only thing that he knew is that he wants to service the US defense, and then everything else was made under the line. So meaning he was not compliant with anything. Like he just wanted to make money where he can. It's a typical entrepreneur. Maybe it might not be a right analogy, but what I mean is you find someone who just wants to make money. It's not necessarily building a business. Their interest is how much money can I make. So Ephraim saw that opportunity when I think it was the time that the US invaded Afghanistan, and he knew that they were buying from small players. You can equate that to BEE in South Africa, where government gives previously disadvantaged individual an opportunity to bid. So they give you the BEE points if your business is previously individual or women or people with disabilities. So it's a BE kind of setup as well that the US Defense had set up to say they want to support the small players in the market. So he saw the opportunity, and then he was not chasing the big. So basically his business strategy, he was not chasing the big contract. His strategy was to chase the smaller contract. Now, but he had his operational plan. His business plan was not complicated, right? He did his market research. Now, in terms of Ephraim, when it comes to AEY, he did his market research, right? He knew that industry. Who are the players in the industry? How are they selling? He understood what's going on in that industry, which is maybe even different from the Ray Kroc story or the Mcdonald's story. It's different from how David did his business. He didn't understand the bed sheet business. But with Ephraim, he understood his sector. He understood the defense, how it works, and then how to bid and all those things. So one thing that you can give it to David is that he did his market research. He did his industry analysis. Remember, he was saying he's focusing on the crumbs. He was a rat who's focused on the crumbs. So he knew who he's competing with. He was not competing with the big boys. He wanted contracts that the big boys didn't want, or they were too small for them. So he wanted those. So he was scavenging on the crumbs that the big players were not interested in. So in this case, what you can learn from AEY in terms of when you're developing a business, do your market research like Ephraim did. Understand that sector. Make sure you know what to do, who are the players in the market, what is their approach, what is their strength, because he identified their strength and he identified the opportunity. He analyzed the competitors to say they're not interested in the crumbs, and he understood the landscape to say the US government is giving contracts to small players. So he saw that opportunity, and given that he had the industry knowledge, he had the industry know-how, so he had things going for him. And then in terms of the operational plan, it was clear. You sit Fed Biz Hub. You go on Fed Biz Hub. I hope the name is correct. You go, you search. It's like e-tender in South African context. You go on e-tender. You search for the tenders that you can meet the requirements, and you bid for those tenders. And then if you win, you give the whoever who found the tender, you give them the 30% cut on the profit. That is his operation model, his operation plan. It was clear. He didn't want anything. He didn't want to tender for other businesses and getting confused and whatever. He knew his target market. He segmented his market. He identified that I'm going for the Department of Defense. I'm going for Pentagon. So now, and that worked for him, because remember, he started with the crumbs. And that's how, even you, when you're going into business, you must consider that you don't have to start big like your AEYs did. They started small with the crumbs. And there's a concept in business. Even when you're starting your business, when you're developing a business, you need to develop what you call minimum viable product. What is a minimum viable product? Minimum viable product is you set up a business, meaning if you're going in, let's say you want to manufacture maybe glasses, right? Instead of manufacturing glasses initially, you set up a small operation where you're going to buy from wherever and start selling. So that is not going to cost you money, because you don't have to buy the machinery. You start with the minimum capital that you can, but your business must still be viable. Okay, so if you want to go into spectacle or into glass manufacturing, then you start by buying first from the supplier. You find the suppliers, you buy from them, you keep small stock, and you test the market. And if the market is responding positively, then you can set up your major or big factory. But initially, you test the market with a small investment. That's what AEY did. I think that's a BS lesson to say, yes, most especially when you're funding from your own pocket. But in the case of AEY, they had Ralph, who was an angel investor in the business. So, okay, it's different, but they didn't go to the banks in terms of AEY. So they knew the funding that they need. And with that business, they could easily make their financial projections, because what they do is when they bid, first they do the research to see where they're going to find the products and how much it's going to cost them. And then they're able to do their financial projection. So AEY was able to do, it was an easy business. Unlike the McDonald's one, where it's a little bit complex and it's supposed to be formal, because you need to project how many franchises you have, how much will they be making in their area, and you calculate a percentage of the revenue that you're going to make from there. So now there are too many dynamics that you need to deal with for you to do a McDonald's projections versus AEY. AEY, the projections will be maybe the cost of the office, right? And the cost of the employees. And once you get the contract, you know how you're going to price it. You investigate where you're going to get the material from, whatever the product from, and then you add your markup. And you know you have a fixed office cost or admin cost, and then you have the 30% that commission that Ephraim was paying to his employees. So when it comes to how Ephraim approached the business development side of things, on the planning, he did his things well. He knew the industry that he was going into. He had the details. He knew the funding that he was required. He knew the financial plan to say how he's going to price and how he's going to do his profit share and all that. So the financial planning, it was on point. Operational plan, simple operational plan. You set up an office, buy computers, you hire people, they find the tenders, they facilitate. Whoever found the tender needs to make sure that they facilitate the buying from the supplier until the delivery to the customer. So operational plan, just clear in AEY. It was clear, and then they operated, and one most important thing, they developed a minimum viable product, as I explained. They started small, they learned the industry, and they grew the business as they went. So they were getting smaller contracts, servicing them, making sure that they build their experience, they build their financial muscles, and they went until they landed the 300 million US dollar the Afghanistan deal. There are other things that we look at. Okay, AEY had its own problems from how they approach things. They were casual about things, and they didn't have proper supply chain management things. They didn't have proper management controls. But those things, we look at them when you're looking at the relevant section. But when it comes to the business planning, AEY did the things the way it's supposed to be done. So if you're an entrepreneur or you are a tenderpreneur out there, make sure that you understand the sector that you are targeting. Make sure that you research that sector. You know where you're going to source your product. And operationally, set up your operation. Remember, if you are running a tender business, I mean, you don't need massive operations. You might need an office, you might need 1-2 sales or marketing people for them to look for tenders and to complete the bid documents and all that. It's a very simple operation. And then, as we're going to learn later on, when we're looking at other modules, you'll see where they went wrong, because eventually they lost that 300 million contract, and Ephraim went to jail, and then David got a suspended sentence. But it's not because of they lacked business planning. On the business planning side, they were on point. It's just that they lacked many other things. So, but on business planning, from where I'm sitting, they did a proper business plan. They knew, they segmented their market, they targeted a specific market, and they knew how to service that market. Okay, and operationally, they had proper operation in place, and they secured contracts. So that's how you develop a business plan on a call it a tender business. It's not complicated. You just need to analyze the market, know how you're gonna approach the market. You know what type of people you're gonna hire. The team side, operational side is simple. You set up your operations, make sure that it can secure or it can find the tenders, and on the other side, you have your proper supply chain processes in place. That's the lesson from AEY in the context of the business plan. Okay, and as I keep on repeating, they made a lot of other mistakes, but on the business planning side, they nailed it. So it's something. There are a few things that you can learn, as I've mentioned earlier on this movie, when it comes to the business plan development. Okay, now we're going to look at the AEY. Not AEY. Now we're going to look at the Oakland A's, which is the baseball team, and the source is the book and the movie called Moneyball. Okay. So now we are looking at it in the context of business plan development, right? Yes, so we have other modules that we're going to look at these case studies, but for this session, the focus is only on the business plan development, right? And AEY was a small baseball team, and what happened is, in terms of operation, it was performing not too bad, but it was not winning. Because what happens is, as they perform, the big teams will come and buy the star players. Then they have to go back to the drawing board and plan the new season without their star players. So it was a continuous process, and they were not winning the league and all that. So that causes frustration. So now, in this context of the Oakland A's, you need to look at the business plan not as the business plan as we generally look at to say is the business plan for a startup. Remember, even existing businesses, you need to revise your business plan. You need to relook at your business plan and revise it. You might have the original business plan for startup as defined as the business plan, but for an existing business, the easiest, we call it strategic plan, business planning, to whatever that in your institution you might call it, but it's still a business plan. So what happens is, every year as an entrepreneur, you need to revise your business plan. So you look at the industry, what's happening in the industry, what's happening in the market, operationally, what's happening, are we efficient as we should be? Then what are the opportunities out there? How can we improve our business in this new financial year, whatever? So I will encourage you as an entrepreneur to make sure that you do your business planning like year on year. You don't do a business plan once off and forget about it. You do your business plan because things change, and you need to innovate and come up with a new way or new ways of doing things, of improving your operation. So with the Oakland A, okay, the whatever the movie and the book starts where the Oakland A's, they just lost in a final game. So they lost the last game of the season. Then they went into the new season. So when you go into a new season, like entrepreneurs should do, you start with your planning process. One, you do the budgeting. So in this movie, we see Billy, which is the team manager, going to Steve, which is the team owner, to say, give me the budget. That's one thing that you do at the beginning of the year, and rightfully so. Billy went to Steve to say, give me the budget, because the big team took our 3 best players. So now, for me to plan this for the season, to develop a business plan for the season, I need to know how much you're going to give me. And then Steve said, nix, I'm not giving you anything, because we don't have money. Go sit with your scouts and see what you guys can do. Find the players that we can afford without you getting extra funding. Okay. So now that was the part for the required funding. You need to know the funding required for you to run your operation. You need to know how much you need for you to implement your plans. So Billy wanted funding from Steve, and Steve said no. See what you can do. So Billy, now in the business concept, in the business context, you need to plan your execution strategy based on the funding that you have and the environment that you're operating in. So Billy at the time now, he realized that he needed to analyze the industry, because obviously he had already done the industry analysis to realize that he's competing with top teams and they have good budgets. So he can't compete strictly on budget because he doesn't have the budget. So he needs to find something different. Now he went to sit with his scouts to say, okay, what are we going to do? And his scouts told him, that's business planning now. Even with you as an entrepreneur, beginning of the year, you need to sit with your team and plan the way forward to say, what are we going to do? So Billy went and sat with his scouts, and his scouts, they were acting like, like they are operating from a big team. They just wanted to buy players. And then that's where he had to explain to say, look, we need to change strategy because we can't continue doing the same thing year in, year out, hoping for different results. So what we need to do is to change strategy. So that's why business planning is very, very important to say, don't keep the business plan that you developed 10 years ago. Continuously change your business plan. Because like with Billy, he realized that we can't do the same things that we've been doing. So we need to change the strategy, how we approach things. Then that's when he met Peter Brand, and then Peter Brand knew that the method that was used, the Billy James approach of being able to calculate a performance of a player based on mathematics. So there was a maths system that you can use to evaluate players. So that math system was able to reduce the noise from the players or from the market, whatever, reduce them to a one number that you can see if this player performs or not. So before, Billy was not using that because he was also acting like a big team. But after he sat down with Steve, who indicated that he's not going to have the budget, after he's done his financial projection to see how much money he has and how much he needs to spend, realized the money is not sufficient, and then he sat with his scouts to see which players can they buy. And I think in the meeting he asked that, okay, you're giving me these players, can we afford them? The answer was no, we don't have the money to afford them. So in that strategic session, then Billy meets Peter Brand, and then he recruits him as his assistant. Then he comes, because he was on turnaround management, if you can call it that, to recover from losing those three players. He needed to find players that he can afford, and not only afford, but they can perform. So now he changed the strategy the following season, where he used the numbers from Peter Brand to identify players, and in that season they broke the American baseball team baseball records. But it was the cheapest team in the league. So what they achieved, okay, even though they didn't win their last game, but how they performed against teams that were spending millions. So they say, okay, in the movie that I think he won with a budget of $230 something thousand versus the team that he was playing with the Yankees spent about more than $1 million per win. So you can see his average cost per win was far lower than the Yankees. Yes, he lost to them, but he was in the finals with them. So what made him be in the finals with a team that he spent more than $1 million per win, while he's spending only 230,000, whatever, around that round figure? What made him achieve that is because he thought outside the box. He looked at the situation to say, look, in my industry, I'm competing with these players. We call it industry analysis. That's a fancy way to call it when you develop a business. He analyzed the industry. He looked at the strengths and weaknesses of the teams that he's competing with. So he looked at his own strength and weaknesses. Then, which mainly is because it's a budget issue. He doesn't have the money. He can't keep the players. That's the weakness. And then, but I mean, the advantage is that he had the flexibility to change the system because the team is small. It's easier to change smaller teams than big teams, or smaller to change a small company versus a big company because the smaller companies are agile. So he identified that opportunity and he changed the approach. Because if he still implemented the business plan that he developed 5 years ago or 2 years ago or season ago, he might not have performed. But because he looked at the plan to say, no, this plan is not sustainable. We don't have the money to keep this plan going. And he said something that if we act like the Yankees in the boardroom, we're going to lose to the Yankees out there. So when you're doing your business planning as an entrepreneur, don't act like or don't behave like big companies. You don't have the resources. That means if you start thinking like big corporates, you're going to lose to big corporates because they have big budgets. Okay. So as a small entrepreneur, you must be a Billy in your industry. You must change the game. You must find a way to win or to gain competitive advantage even though you don't have the funding, even if you don't have the money. Because you have the flexibility, you are closer to the customers. You can provide different service. You can provide customized service to your customers. But Billy used the math to change the game. So business planning is not only for businesses that are starting, even for existing business. But I know most entrepreneurs, whatever they do, copy and paste. Just take the strategy from last season, you paste it in the document for this. You just change the date and you submit to whoever that you need to submit to. But with Billy, he thought out of the box. So sometimes they call it it's a zero-based strategy. He sat down to say, I'm facing this situation. How best can I win? How best can I beat my competitors? That's what entrepreneurs are supposed to do, year in, year out. It's not something that you do once. Year in, last season we did 1, 2, 3, 4, or last year we did 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this year we need to do 1, 2, 3, 4 differently so that we can gain market advantage or we can gain more customers. So strategic planning, it becomes very, very important, and don't stick to strategies that are not working. If you can see from Billy the way he did, thinking was new. He was doing things differently, and that it's not always guaranteeing that you'll be successful, but at least it gives you a shot. So as an entrepreneur, don't sit on the old business plan. Make sure that you regularly innovate around it and be open-minded, because even Billy, he recruited Peter Brand after they met at his club. Yet Peter was working somewhere, and then he was looking for a certain player. Then Peter, they call him Pete, advised his bosses to say, no, we can't sell him that player. And then after that, he approached him. Why did you say that? And so he identified potential in Peter, and then he recruited him because he realized that it's a different thinking that he was bringing. So even for you as an entrepreneur, yes, you can do your own business plan, but sometimes you might need assistance from industry expert to help you think differently. So you don't have to do everything on your own. You need input. You might need input from industry experts to develop your business plan. Like Billy relied on Peter to develop the business, to develop the operating model for him. And then to look at operationally, the Oakland A's, it was a well-managed team. They had certain standards, certain operational processes that they executed. And then, but the main thing that I want to highlight from the business plan development perspective is that business plan is not a static document that you create once in 10 years. It's a document that you use to beat your competitors. You use the strategic sessions and strategic planning to gain competitive advantage, to find innovative ways to beat your competition and to improve your profitability. Because the way he approached it, I mean, he was running it the cheapest team in the league, but performing one. It was not only cheap; it was cheap, but it was a performing one. So you don't necessarily as well to be an entrepreneur or to an owner of the business to act as an intrapreneur. Like Billy is what we call intrapreneur because he's within the organization. So he comes with innovative strategies to gain competitive advantage. Okay, so that's the case study on the Oakland A's, which is coming from the movie Moneyball, and there's a book that you need to read so that you can contextualize this lesson. So you need to if you can get a book or you can watch the movie so that you can understand the context that this movie is around. But this is on the business plan development lesson, and we continue to use the same 3 case studies to analyze all the 10 topics that we have developed in this master program, so that we give you practical examples on how other people did it, so that when you are implementing it, you might implement it differently than if you're just going through the theoretical lesson, where it doesn't give you perspective in terms of how other people have done it. Okay, that's our lesson today on case studies on business plan development. We'll meet again.